Welcome to the Bear Talk, your go to Chicago Bears podcast, where a father and son break down all things Bears, from Soldier Field to Sunday showdowns. I'm your host, Dylan Weaver, and I'm joined here with my dad. How you doing, Dad?
Doing great, son. How you doing? It seems like it's all hell breaking loose at Hallis Hall. The fans are storming the gate with pitchforks and torches. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting. As we stated on our post game last week, the honeymoon phase has officially it's over for Ben Johnson, and now it's time to see what he is made of as a head coach. Although I don't even believe his seat is even a little bit that hot yet. I think it's more so on the players. Ryan Poles seems to be under a lot of fire here this past week with his draft picks in the recent years. But it's a new week. Hopefully things are different this week because the Bears are behind the eight ball now, and they're going to have a lot of catch up to do to have any chance at the playoffs. But before we even talk about the playoffs, let's just talk about getting one win. And that brings us this week with Flus coming back to town. The Bears take on the Cowboys this week. Another tough matchup for our defense. The Cowboys offense is red hot. You can even argue they should have beat the Eagles week one with their best receiver, CeeDee Lamb, dropping two balls on that last drive to take the lead. Um, so it's going to be another nightmare matchup for our cornerbacks. Hopefully they can get some redemption this week. But if I'm being honest, these two receivers in George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb is a lot scarier than Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams, in my opinion. Um, what kind of concerns you got going to this week, at least for the defense?
Well, before I jump into my concerns for the week, I want to touch a little bit on the fandom out there and the pandemonium that's surrounding the Bears. Only 2 weeks into the season, I get it. I'm a Bears fan. I speak from a fan perspective. I know you're a little bit more analytics and stats and looking at the black and white of it, and I kind of look at it through the lens of my heart. Um, you know, if you think about it, right, the, Caleb Caleb is doing well, right? If you look at his rookie season, even you pointed out the stats before, he had a phenomenal rookie season. Granted, the draft class was out there. What would we have 6 quarterbacks in the draft class with Caleb?
And
Uh,
they all went within those first 15 picks. It was
yeah,
a highly recruited quarterback class.
absolutely, and we've watched him. There's been some great play out there, but all those quarterbacks that have got drafted last year. But from a Bears perspective, right? You look at Caleb Williams. He had a really good first year on paper, right? Other than the win loss column, and I get it. Wins and losses is what it's all about. But when you look at the stats, as far as rushing, pass downs, touchdowns, passing, interceptions, the whole 9 yards. He did a really good job. I think the problem that comes in there, especially from a fan's perspective, is he was touted as generational talent, and I think everyone thinks immediately that he's going to come in and be the Messiah and lead us to the championship. And I catch myself in that same mindset sometimes, and I look at like a CJ Stroud who came in as a rookie and they go to the playoffs, or Jaden Daniels last year, arguably 1 and 2 between him and Caleb, and they end up going, the Commanders end up going to the playoffs. So I get the expectations. I understand everyone is impatient, wanting to put some wins together. You look at the win loss column. I think we got what 14 losses and 1 win over the last 2 seasons. Um, so it's tough from a Bears fan's perspective, especially all the money you put into it, right? You buy tickets to the game, you buy some merchandise or gear, um, all those things, and you want a little return on your investment, or at least a win every now and then, right? So you can sleep better at night. People say people are leaving the state of Illinois for various reasons, but maybe it's just because the Bears lose all the time. I don't know. But yeah, I think we got to give Ben Johnson, Ryan Poles, and Caleb a little bit of time here. I think back to my younger days when you had some, remarkable QBs come out, the Peyton Mannings of the world. Heck, even look at Baker Mayfield, going to the Browns and bounced around from 5 teams, and now at the Bucks. arguably one of the best QBs out there right now. Over the course of the last couple of years and putting together a real big run down there. So let's give it time. Let's let the coaches coach. Let's let the players learn. And I think let's just be happy it's football season, right? We have to wait so long in between the Super Bowl and Week 1, and now we're getting all disgruntled. And before we know it, football season's going to be over, and we're going to be mad again that we have to wait. Um, but I think we all got to calm down a little bit, simmer our expectations, watch the process, watch Caleb grow, and regardless, there's a lot of people out there talking about, benching them or trading them. There's some rumors out there. I don't know about you, but we've been through 52 quarterbacks since '85. Let's work with this one. Obviously, he's got some talent. We've seen a lot of the talent he has out there and some of the different throws he can make. So let's work with him. It might take a little time, but I think if we work with him, we get him to where he needs to be. I think we're going to see a lot better play coming from him and the team. Right? It's a team sport. There's 11 people on the field at a time, and it's not solely down to one person. And I know we want wins right away, but just want to get that out there for episode 10 before we go into this because I think this game's going to be a tough one. The post game show may be a little hard, but think about it. Russell Wilson put up 400 yards on the Cowboys defense, so I'd be pretty impressed if Caleb threw up 400 yards and a few touchdowns. I think that'd be exciting.
Yeah, I think you actually bring up a great point, and I've kind of been going back on social media with this week, but I think it's very important for fans, whether you're just a casual fan, whether you're deep in the analytics, it's important to separate the two. Wins and losses, I don't know how many times I got to say it. It's not a quarterback stat. There's three phases of a game for a reason. Offense, defense, and special teams. And that's what, ultimately goes into a win and a loss. It doesn't solely come down to a quarterback. Yeah, a quarterback plays a role in that. Sure, you could say that, but it counts on other phases. I don't know the stat, but I wonder how many quarterbacks won a game when their defense gave up 52 points. I wonder what the stat is on that. And I get wins and losses is what, the major, casual fan looks at, and that's how they determine a success of a quarterback. But like you stated, last year, we might have won 5 games, but Caleb Williams with 3 different OCs in his rookie year broke, all the rookie, Bears quarterback, granted, it's not a high bar that was set, but still, we give all these other quarterbacks before him, and no shade to Justin Fields or Mitch Trubisky or to any of them. We gave them 3-4 years. Why are we freaking out with Caleb after one season and 2 games? Like, it's a process here, and I get, we haven't won a Super Bowl in 40 years, and everybody's getting a little impatient, but this is how proper things have to be done. And, you know, I would only say the one thing, where fans can kind of worry is the whole Ryan Poles extension. As far as that goes, did they rush it a little bit? Because he still had some years left on his contract, but the Bears did want to change things this year. In the past, they've never linked up the quarterback, the head coach, or the GM. At least
Mhm.
this time, they have Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles on that same contract, and they're going to get their time to prove if it's all worth it. Caleb obviously was drafted last year, but they're all linked up together in that same amount of time frame. And for once, yeah, maybe the results aren't showing yet, but the Bears fans are doing things the correct way of building a team and lining everything up within from top to bottom. So let's give everything a little bit of time. And Caleb, I think you're already seeing it. May be little, but you're already seeing progress that Ben Johnson has put on Caleb. Last year, the Bears had 0 opening drive touchdowns. We're 2 for 2 this year. That is a very positive sign. And it's not only a positive sign for Caleb, it's a positive sign for Ben Johnson. It's showing he's not just a one-shot wonder in Detroit. He can still scheme up plays with different personnel, different people, and get things going. Now I think we're at a step where we want to see it continue to grow, but also see it played out through the majority of a game. Where right now we're kind of so far with the small sample size of 2 games, we've seen, the offense start off good and kind of, fall off. That first game more so being the offense just lost their footing, whereas I think the second game they got down by too much, and it was the defensive line for the Lions had their ears put back and were just able to full run Caleb because they knew every play had to be a passing play if they wanted any chance at coming back into this game. So I think the Caleb hate, I'll say it, I've said it plenty of times, it needs to slow down. The first game, I can understand it a little bit because I do agree the second half, Caleb, once that pressure started getting to him in the blitz, he was a little bit all over the place. But last week was by no means Caleb's fault. He played a good game. It wasn't great, but it wasn't the reason we lost the game. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know
and
me,
on
I'm as passionate a fan as any fan out there. And there may have or may not have been a jersey at a certain point in time a few years ago when we had a certain quarterback
Yeah,
who is probably,
the best Bears
statistically
quarterback.
speaking, the
Yeah.
Bears' best quarterback of all time. But my heart got in the way, and I burnt that jersey like it was nobody's business. But looking back, I probably would have kept Jay for a few more years because he was a good quarterback. He was doing the best he could do with what he got. I think we all got to be patient though, like you said, and
Ex- and, and,
let's
and ex-
let's watch it grow.
especially with Ben Johnson. It's 2 games in, and we've seen growth, and it's been a good amount of growth. You're seeing for the most part, especially early in the game. Like I said, we kind of need to see it to put together for the whole game. But both games now, you're seeing the ball quick in and out. He knows where he's going with the football. Um, Especially from week 1 to week 2, the accuracy issues were a big thing week 1. Week 2, Caleb talked about it going into the game, after the game, how the reporters asked him, you looked a lot more accurate this week, a lot more
Mhm.
timing. He's like, yeah, my main goal this week between me and Ben was to work on my footwork and make sure it's matched up. And you're seeing those improvements. It's let's take a look at, the end of the season. And like Ben Johnson has said, it's not going to be linear and just go straight up a mountain, but the goal is by the end of the season, you want to be able to say, yeah, there was a lot of growth from game 1 to game 17. And whether that's with the playoffs or whether that's without the playoffs, let's look at that and see that as, this is Ben Johnson and Caleb's first year. And I think it obviously the wins and losses aren't off to a great start, but I think the Caleb Williams Ben Johnson pairing, I think it's off to a pretty good start. And now this is the other part about it too. With the offense, it comes down to O linemen too. They're causing penalties, false starts, holding calls that also all of it's getting pinned on Caleb when Caleb has no control over that. Yeah, some of the cadence stuff, maybe he's might be, messing up his cadence a little bit, but a lot of it too isn't on him. And those are things he can't control. And yes, you'd still like him to see him go pick up those 10 yards that we lost. But at the same time, this is professional football. Getting those, you're 1st and 20, you're already way behind. Now you have the same amount of plays, but double the yardage to move the
We
chains.
struggled getting 2 plays to get a yard last week. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
I agree, and it's gonna be there's gonna be growing pains, and you know the one thing I tried to do in this off season as a fan, and I recommend it for everyone, is yeah, you can get hyped, you can be excited for the season and expect to see things, but the people holding them to the standard of, oh my god, it's playoffs or Super Bowl or bust, like everyone needs to relax and let things develop. This is a work in progress. The Detroit Lions, the first year Ben Johnson was there, they started off 1-6. I bet you they were all screaming for Ben Johnson's head, get him out of here, brother. The guy Ben Johnson led the offense in EPA the past 3 years. Let's slow the roll a little bit and let this thing get fully developed. They're not a finished product. It's gonna take time.
They're
And
missing a few
this,
pieces.
yeah, the defense is not helping for one, and two, injuries on our defense specifically have killed us this year. But I think that's enough a little bit about the rant as far as it goes about the Caleb Williams thing.
Let's
I
all take
do,
a collective
yeah.
breath and let's focus on week 3.
Yeah, I do agree, and I like that you brought it up because I think it is a hot stove right now for a lot of Bears fans. I do just recommend you just to take the wins and losses out of it. I know you want to see it tied to the quarterback, but that is not how a win and loss works. There's 3 phases for a reason. There's never going to be quarterback controls a win or a loss. That is not true. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and let's just leave it at that. But let's
I mean,
dive.
let's look around the league for a second before we dive in, though. You look at Patrick Mahomes with their record right now.
Yeah, 0-2, but
1-2.
they do get the benefit of the doubt after all those after we talked about in our, that when we played them in the preseason, the worst they've done is an AFC championship game. They do get a lot more off the hook than the Bears. The Bears
But
have been in
they're
this
0-2.
situation for years to come. But yeah, and it takes time, and I think that's the main thing. And like you said, everyone relax. Let's enjoy. We've been dying for football season to be here. And like you said, if we just keep getting ourselves worked up, next thing you know, it's going to be January already, and it's going to be over, and we're going to be talking about draft picks. So let's
There might be
enjoy
a
it.
rise in heart attacks if we don't calm down.
Yeah, let's enjoy it while we have it. And I think this is a perfect segment into the game because if the Bears can pull out a win in this game, there is some serious winnable games coming down the line where they can right this ship and get themselves right back in a wild card hunt come end of the season. I know we got the Cowboys this week. You got the Raiders the following week, who they got a good defense, but their offense seems to be struggling. Then after that, we're on our bye week. We head to Commanders. Could be a tough one. Jaden Daniels could be out, could not be out. You don't know. And then, I believe we head to the Saints, then the Ravens, then the Giants, and then back to the Vikings. There is some serious winnable games. I would say that Ravens game and Commanders game are two tough ones, but it all starts with this week, which is why we're here. It's the Cowboys, and their offense is full hum right now, and it's kind of it's kind of the same thing with the Cowboys is the same problem the Bears are having. Their defenses are just not playing. The Cowboys are also missing a key piece of Deron Bland, who led them in interceptions last year. They obviously traded away Micah Parsons. That's the elephant in the room. And their defense has been struggling. Like you said, they let Russell Wilson throw 470 yards. We haven't seen that from Russell Wilson since his prime days of playing football. So I think this game could definitely be a shootout, and if we are going to want to win it, this will be a game where Caleb can, like you said, he can maybe get up in that 400. He definitely probably should be in the 300-yard range with as bad as this, defense is playing, and then on top of it, as high powered as the Dallas offense is, I think this game is going to be a shootout. But let's start. I kind of wanted to touch on something with the offense first that I was looking at a lot of analytics this week, and one player on the Bears offense that we are going to have to see improve, which he is questionable for the game, which maybe he might not be playing, but he probably will be. It's DeAndre Swift. There was a stat. They took out all 20-yard. It's for rushing only. They took out all 20-yard rushing plays because those are anomalies. They don't happen that often, and they obviously can boost this statistic. But it is how many yards your running back is getting per run play before contact. The Bears lead the NFL. DeAndre Swift is getting 1.89 yards before contact, but yet our running game looks terrible. There's only one person to blame when looking at that stat, and it's DeAndre Swift. He's got to figure out a way to make that flow, because the Bears rushing game is terrible, but clearly Ben Johnson and the O-line, they're calling up the right plays because he has the most yards before anybody's touching him out of all 32 NFL teams. And I don't know, I don't know where the Bears rank in rushing in the league, but I'm pretty sure it's bottom 5, but yet we're in the top of most, yards before contact. So I wouldn't be surprised, too, if we do get to see more Kyle Monunga and Roshan Johnson here soon, because it's going to get pretty short temper with Ben Johnson if this continues down this way where we can't run the ball, especially when he's calling and the O-line's doing their job of blocking where he's getting those 2 yards before even getting touched, but we can't have a good run game. That's just not sustainable long term. And you're putting all the weight on Caleb Williams to go make all these plays. And not saying you can't do it, but at the same time, in this developmental phase, like we just talked about, you do need a run game, and that helps open up the passing game and helps make Caleb's job a lot easier. And to be a good football team, you simply need to have a running game. You can't be one dimensional. You're too predictable, and people will start teeing off on you. But I want to see DeAndre Swift have a better game this week, especially with Dallas's defense and where they're at. We need to see some bigger runs, and we did see a couple last week where he finally broke some for 6, 7,
Mhm.
8 yards, but we need to see it more consistently, especially, the main thing that rose my ears about DeAndre Swift was just that Minnesota game. We watched the Falcons play them last week, and yeah, it's Bijan Robinson. It's two different caliber running backs, but Bijan's running for 15, 20 yards a play on the Minnesota defense, and DeAndre Swift looked like he couldn't even get a yard. So I do think it's really important that we see a big game from DeAndre Swift this week.
Yeah, I'm a little worried though. Speaking of the stat that you just added up there, but not only Caleb and Dak for that matter. I don't know if the yards in the air are going to be that is exciting this week, simply because the weather forecast is not looking favorable for that type of game. You do got a 53% chance of rain Sunday, and it's supposed to be starting around game time.
Oh, of
Um,
course. Yeah.
and so that's gonna hinder the passing game, right? Not from the quarterback perspective, although if you get a wet ball, it makes it a little difficult with the mechanics of throwing the ball. But then the receivers, we've had some drop passes already this season in domes, and also outside when it's dry and nice conditions out. So a little concerned on that passing game potentially based on the weather, what it does, and then you are going to rely on the running game. And so if we're struggling there, that could be a problem for us. It'll be interesting how that comes out. I would like to see Rashawn back, simply because of he's a different type of runner, right? I think he's more of that in between the tackles, hard yardage, where DeAndre Swift is probably more of that finesse running back to bounce it outside, and we see it so many times. He's always trying to bounce it out when he shouldn't be. But if we could get those two going, or even Kyle Monungai with the hard yards in between the tackles, I think that might improve the running game, and at least relieve some of that pressure off there. But that weather will play a factor in the game, definitely for sure. And so that's got me a little concerned, depending on what type of rain it is. Is it just a light drizzle, little mist, or are we talking
Monsoon, yeah.
downpour? And we've been to some games there where we've been to the hot games, we've been to the drizzly games and the frozen tundra games. So we've been a lot there, and we know what that weather can play into the whole game plan and how that works out. All the reason for a new stadium and a dome, which would be nice. This way, you take all the weather elements out.
Yeah, now that you bring that up, I did remember hearing about there was a good chance for some rain. So it will be curious. We may not see, especially from Ben Johnson's perspective, we may not see as many deep shots, but maybe this is the week the tight ends finally do get involved, especially Colston Loveland, heavy play action game with those short to intermediate routes where they're dragging across the field, which would be cool to see. I'd love to see Colston Loveland finally get involved. Had one target last week, but that was once Tyson Bagent was in, and it was an overthrow. So I'd love to see Colston Loveland get involved, but that is interesting. This might be a game that does come down to how good DeAndre Swift does play, because, like you said, it depends on what type of rain it is. If it's heavy rain, oh, it's definitely most certainly going to come down to a running game, because, like you said, that ball gets wet. It doesn't matter what kind of receiver you are. That thing starts sliding through your gloves. Rain's coming in your eyes. It can get really hard to see, and it will come down to those trenches and who's going to push each other back and stop the run game. Um, I will say I do, even though last week was, Jahmyr Gibbs did break off a couple of bigger runs, which he is, a one of one running back. I do have faith in our run defense, especially that first week. I mean, fourth quarter, Jordan Mason took off against when we played the Vikings week 1, but for the most part, we bottled up the run game. And Javonte Williams he's more of a passing back where they use him, out of the backfield in the passing game. So I would have confidence if it kind of does come down to that. Um, and
And
you
and
know,
on top of that, I I know we're all frustrated from week 1, especially when everyone was talking about the check down. But I think Caleb has that mastered, right? That intermediate throw, where he can get that short yardage pretty easily
I
and
yeah.
accurately. So if it does come down to a rainy game, we're not going deep, and it is, tight ends or check downs to the wide receiver, out of the backfield or on a wheel route. Uh, I feel really good about Caleb in that game, right? Because we haven't really seen the deep game yet. I think we've only seen a few passes beyond 20 yards that were caught.
I was about to
So
say the first week, yeah, I agree. We didn't see much of it, but the last week, especially with him in Rome, we did see a lot of those deep crosser routes that were pretty far downfield. And I mean, they're on ropes to Roma Dunze. Um, we have started to see it, but I do agree. The short game has been where which it's a little weird because last year it was kind of him always trying to go for the deep pass, but
hero ball.
that's what we're talking about with Ben Johnson being here. Those checkdowns and those intermediate routes, that's where Caleb has where he starts these games off 11 for 11 for 80 yards. That's what he's doing. He's just taking what the defense is giving him and moving the ball. So I do agree. The short game could be very beneficial. And speaking of rain, expect some fumbles for sure in this game because when that ball gets wet and then you have these people flying in and hitting people, there's probably going to be some turnovers in this game, whether we like to admit it or not. Maybe even some botched snaps by these quarterbacks. Um, but that's what it comes down to is limiting the mistakes. But let's talk about the little cat and mouse game that we got going this week, kind of how Ben Johnson had last week, facing his former team. But now we got Flus coming back into town, not as a head coach, but as a DC still in the cat and mouse game. Caleb practiced against this defense all the time, and Eberflus also got to see Caleb develop and know what his weaknesses are. Obviously, they've probably developed a little bit with Ben Johnson, but some of those weaknesses are still probably there. One that stands out to me where I think I'm not seeing it's not that it's gotten worse, but it's not that I think it's gone much better. Is when Caleb does get pressure, these blitzes, he is having a hard time where he is starting to, his eyes go down and he's trying to figure out what to do, where they need to be up. And that's where your hot routes come in key, your flats, your checkdowns. That's where he needs to go with the ball. And like we said, he's gone a little bit better, but I think it's pretty, if I'm just being realistic, it's been pretty stagnant from this year to last year, where that blitz does come and he starts scrambling. So, the interesting thing is, though, one of Flus's big criticisms last year is he never blitzed and was, oh, I'm just rushing forward, even though we could never touch the quarterback. So does Matt Eberflus send a big FU to Chicago and just start sending blitzes this week, knowing, that's what Caleb struggles with to send a message? It could be interesting, and I think it's going to be a big cat and mouse game between Ben Johnson and Matt Eberflus. And Ben Johnson did give Matt Eberflus his flowers this week on the podium. He did say even when he was in Detroit, Eberflus was one of those coordinators where it challenged him in his offense a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see. Now, granted, Detroit's defense is different than what he has over with the Cowboys, but still, scheme wise, it gave Ben Johnson some problems when he was, calling the plays. And like I said, I do if Dallas wants to sit there and rush four, I think Caleb has shown through the first two games, even with Detroit last week, they just tried rushing four, and Caleb he knows where to go with the ball. It's when that pressure starts coming where things start to they start to speed up in his head, and he starts to have some struggles. So it'll definitely be interesting to see um, and maybe, what do you think? You think Matt Eberflus is going to get booed when he walks in that stadium like last week with Ben Johnson?
I don't think so. I think Chicago fans have a little bit more class than that. Not only did Johnson get booze, I think there was some ugly word chants going on out there, which he doesn't deserve that. I get it, right? He left the team, but I don't think so. I think the phrase that everyone needs to say, whether they're at the game or they're at home watching it TV or down at their local watering hole is you can't lose to Flus. So that would be what needs to stick in your head for this game because definitely don't want to lose to a former coach. It always makes it tough.
Yeah, no, it will definitely be the headlines if they lose. Is about Flus came into Chicago and won, and it might not even be the reason they won, but it'll be the headline.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. I think Eberflus will get some boos, especially just from last year with the time management. I think that was the biggest thing that ultimately ran him out of the town
Yeah.
is crucial where the coaches actually make an impact in the game. And there's these crucial decisions that need to be made in split seconds. That's where Flus ultimately fumbled. Not It was on multiple occasions. I mean, just two off the top of my head, the Hail Mary one last year. Before the Hail Mary, he decided to play straight up defense and back everyone up and let them get free 15 yards and get out of bounds without being touched. And that sets up the Hail Mary. Then we go back to the Detroit game. There's 30 something seconds on the clock. We're in field goal range, could tie the game. And he doesn't call a timeout after he sees Caleb isn't snapping the ball, taking a little bit too long. Next thing you know, 30 seconds go by. That was the last play of the game when we should have at least at the bare minimum been headed to OT. So there was a lot of time management issues last year with Flus, and I don't think it's going to be like the Ben Johnson one. Like the Ben Johnson one was brutal. I mean, that video of it was loud. I don't think it's going to be to that extent, but I do think there will be some clips that surface after the game or during the game of Matt Eberflus getting chewed out, especially if the Bears do get ahead of this game and have a comfortable lead. You best believe those fans in that first section, rows 1 and 2 and 3, they're going to be talking to Flus because Flus does sit on the field and call the plays from the field. So I do think it could get loud for him. So we will have to see. But that cat and mouse game is going to be fun to see between Caleb and Eberflus. I think Caleb's got this game circled, and I think he probably had it circled before the season starts. Um, I mean, it's not only, they want to win, it's just going to be a game where Caleb's hungry to be like, hey, look what I can do now and all this. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, it definitely will be. And think about it too. You got rookie head coach going against rookie head coach and Schottenheimer and Johnson. So there's another storyline. How will that play out? Um, you know, when's the last time the Cowboys won the Super Bowl? Are
I
they on
couldn't
30 years right now?
I couldn't tell you. I could tell
I,
you real quick.
I think it's 30 years, if not a little bit more than that. So, you're looking at a Bears team 40 years since they won and a Cowboys team. And what do you got there, Stat Master? I see you Googling away.
Um, well, I didn't give me the quick answer. It's making me click on some articles.
And now you're behind a paywall.
Yeah, it's all right. I don't know
I'm
when
pretty
it
sure it's
was.
30 years because it was in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. So you're talking 30 years since they won, 40 years since the Bears won. Uh, and arguably, you think about the Cowboys over the years, I mean, they've had a lot of talent on that team and they've never got back to a Super Bowl. So um, it'll be interesting how the game plays out with two rookie head coaches going at it and who
Yeah,
can call it.
the last Super Bowl for them was 1995, so 10 years after us. But it's been a while, but they do have a little bit more experience of being to some and just
Playoff
not
games?
being
Yeah.
able to, capitalize. Um, but yeah, I mean, Schottenheimer, he seems like he's off to a great start over there in Dallas. He's got the offense humming. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jake Ferguson, their tight end, leads the league in receptions through 2 weeks. And then obviously you have George Pickens and CD Lamb, who, everyone's so worried about CD Lamb. But I'm telling you, George Pickens is going to come on here any minute
Yeah.
because people are going to start doubling and tripling CD. And then you're leaving George Pickens on an island. And good luck with that. Um, they got two true wide receiver ones over there. And I'll continue to say this. There's a lot of Dak hate that gets tossed around, But when Dak is healthy, he is a top 10 quarterback in this league. And so far, he looks like it going into this year. He's very accurate. There's some crazy stat. He is 15 for 20 on third down passing attempts, 75% on third downs. That is where the quarterbacks, as a quarterback, you can go make your money. If you're 75% on third down passing, that is an insane stat. Um, Very good, and that's a recipe for disaster for any defense going against him if you're letting that 75% rate continue throughout a game. So that will be something, interesting to look at. So we can transfer over to the defense. I think it's pretty simple for the offense. Just kind of the same thing we kind of been saying. Let's see a full game of it play out. I don't even care if the first quarter we're up 14-0. I'm not going to get excited. I need to see this play out through a whole game before I start getting a little bit more excited when we get these leads, because it's just we just need to see a longevity of a game. I don't want to see it for a first half or a quarter. I need to see it played out through
The
the
full
whole
game.
game. But as far as the defense goes, we just talked about it. George Pickens and CD Lamb. Nashawn Wright and Tyreek Stevenson got big games ahead of them this week. And, honestly, hopefully, it does rain, because it probably would help them out long term. If we, have some rain, it will, help the chances of them adjusting their playbook and shortening plays down instead of these deep home run balls
Hmm.
that they're able to do. But like I said, I think we need to just talk about Tyreek. He had a rough game last week. Think he was the worst cornerback PFF scored last week. He's not giving up a lot of receptions, but he is giving up, when he does give up those receptions, they are big,
Big.
big plays. And obviously, a lot of that, it's a small sample size, and a lot of it has to do with just last week in guarding Amon-Ra St. Brown. But Tyreek and Nashawn Wright have a big task on their hand this week, and it's all due to another week gone by. No Kyler Gordon, and TJ Edwards is out as well, which hurts the Jake Ferguson part, because we're going to have Noah Sewell in there like we saw week one. And Noah Sewell did struggle in the passing game, was very good in the run game, but when it came
Hmm.
to passing, it's where he kind of fell apart. And Jake Ferguson, like we said, he's that middle of the field guy for their offense, and he's been leading the league through 2 weeks in receptions. So it's going to be a tall task for, our secondary, just with the injuries that are going on. Um, and I do want to see the D line bounce back this week, get some more pressure. We saw one last week with Montez Sweat, but it got, wiped out because of an illegal hands by Tyreek Stevenson. So we need to see this defensive line get some pressure. Honestly, just the defense as a whole, we need a better game week this week, and it needs to be a complete 180, or this game will get out of control just like it did last week.
I think don't forget week one though, and talk a little bit about the Cowboys offense. You know, Pickens didn't have that many targets. CD had like what, three drop balls that day, three, maybe
4.
four.
Yeah.
Um, and then go back to our defense, how well we covered Justin Jefferson in week one, with no Gordon and no Jalen Johnson. And I would put Justin Jefferson up there as one of the top receivers in the league. So potentially, weather plays out. We could work it. And I think too, I really think this. I know Wright didn't have that great of a game, I don't think, last week, but the first game I think he played well. He had the pick six too. And I go back to, he wasn't in there from the beginning, so the continuity of his game was a little off. So I think if he's the starter, and he plays all the way through, I think we're going to see him have a good game. I think he'll do his job, which is the most important thing, right? If all 11 people on defense do their job, you're going to have a great game. Tyreek, though, does scare me. This isn't the first time that he's had a bad game, and you go all the way back to last year with the Hail Mary and the bad game. Last week he had a little bit of an issue that cost us some yards. But if he can keep focused, and the defensive line does their job, I think the defense can hold up. Um, and a little bit of luck on our side as well, right? Sometimes you got to get a little peanut punch going on after they get the ball and get it out, maybe get a turnover. That's what I'd really like to see. I'd love to see a turnover. I think, and especially Pickens is, in my opinion, if he gets going, you're in trouble because he's a confidence guy, and I think everyone's a confidence person, right? If you got the confidence, you're going to play better. But if you can have maybe not as many targets in the beginning or some contested catches, and he doesn't win, then you kind of take him out of the game. And I think that's an advantage that Dennis Allen's got to play to, knowing that personnel on the offensive side of the ball. And then you got to worry about CD Lamb. I don't know if I've ever seen CD Lamb get frustrated to the point where he becomes a head problem. He just continues to play. But I think George Pickens, if you can play a little head game with him, I think you take him out of the game early, and you only then got to worry about neutralize one other wide receiver out there. But Jake Ferguson, he's a beast when it comes to tight ends.
Yeah, I'll say too, as far as you were saying with Pickens being a confidence guy, that is the one thing about Tyreek. He does not lack any confidence whatsoever. He is a
He likes
confident
a little
player.
discipline.
Yeah, he that's for sure. He lacks discipline, but that's probably a good thing that he doesn't lack confidence because after a week like he had, he ain't gonna come out there and be thinking about no, he's gonna be thinking, I'm gonna shut you down. And it'll be interesting. I think Nashawn will be on George Pickens because he's their more vertical threat. And usually so far of what we've seen, Nashawn Wright's on the more lengthier receivers. Hence, he was on Justin Jefferson. Same thing. He's going to be on George Pickens. He's their guy that's going to stretch the field. Where I think Tyreek's going to be with CeeDee Lamb this weekend. That is a tough matchup, especially. I know you hinted at it that we did see this both of them play good against Justin Jefferson, but I think there's a little bit more depth to that. JJ McCarthy's throwing him the ball. And on top of it, too, Justin Jefferson really is the only threat, at least right now with Jordan Addison being out. Justin Jefferson's the only threat on that offense in the passing game as far as that goes.
Yeah.
And now you have to deal with two of them. And like I said, it's double who you want and let the other guy, have the one-on-one matchups. And honestly, I probably would double CeeDee Lamb and let's see what Nashawn Wright can do. Rome Odunze talked about all training camp because he was on Rome, and Rome says he's a 6'4" corner, great length. Um, he he's Rome Odunze, isn't I think he's coming on this year and showing, why we picked him at the 9th pick last year. And it'll be a great test with him and George Pickens. And obviously, George Pickens is going to make his plays, but we hopefully to see Nashawn Wright make some plays too. That's kind of what you got to do with these receivers. They're going to get their plays in. It's going to happen, but it's about limiting that and making your plays as well. And like you said, definitely, I agree. Shut down George Pickens early. Do not let him get going because when he gets going, it's just like a big snowball rolling down the hill, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger as it comes. I think that's really with any NFL player. You get a little bit of confidence, and it gets bigger and bigger as it keeps going. So, take him out of the game early, and you know let's see. The defense needs to respond, and I expect it to. We've heard about Dennis Allen being exotic. I think you're going to finally start seeing some exotic come out, especially on this first drive. If we don't see those D linemen get home, you're going to start seeing it happen because we can't have another week of Dak Prescott sitting back in a clean pocket like we saw with Jared Goff last week, because we all saw what happened. And that's where it's kind of hard to judge these cornerbacks last week too, because when it's a clean pocket, you can't expect a cornerback to go run with a receiver for 5 seconds down the field while they're making all these cuts. It's just not going to happen. It's too easy for these quarterbacks to dissect it when they have no pressure.
Yeah.
So we need to
What do
see
you
the D line get active.
what do you mean by exotic? You talking like leopard print fishnet stockings and high heels? What is an
No, I'm
exotic?
I'm talking when I talk exotic, I mean in preseason and in not preseason, but in training camp, they talked about which that's why this Kyler Gordon injury is a huge issue because he's their main chess piece that lines up coming off the end. He's dropping back, guys coming over here, but I think we're going to get to see a lot more Jaquan Brisker lined up towards the line, coming on some blitzes. Tremaine Edmonds as well. Just some more cornerback blitzes off the line, quick and fast, where you may not think it's coming. So that's why this Kyler Gordon injury, I think people aren't really realizing how significant this is. Like, it's probably up at that aspect of not having Jalen Johnson. Kyler Gordon was a big part where Dennis Allen said he had him lining up at cornerback, nickel, safety. Like, he's a huge piece to this defense, and we haven't got to have him yet. And if we can scrape by this game and pull out a win and get him ready to go after that bye week, because honestly, that's probably the plan right now that they're thinking. Get him ready to go for after that bye week. So we need him back as soon as possible, especially with Jalen Johnson. However, I did want to talk about this. It is interesting. Jalen Johnson hasn't been moved to the IR yet, which if a player is going to miss 4 weeks, you have to put him on IR. And this whole week, he hasn't been moved yet. So maybe the severity really isn't all that serious. Obviously, the first couple reports after, per Adam Schefter and Jeremy Fowler, that it was serious and it was going to be pretty bad. But with him not being on IR yet, it does give me a little bit of hope that maybe we can get him back eventually and not be on IR. So that was a little bit of encouraging to see this week, because the whole week he's on the injury report, which if you're on IR, you don't get put on that because obviously it's injury reserve. You're there and you're stuck. So it is pretty interesting to see. And maybe he is going to come back, which would be crazy considering, like I said, how severe it seemed like initially.
Yeah, it definitely did. I know when that report came out, it sounded like they talk about like muscle pulling from the bone,
Yeah, which is not
which would
good.
be an easy case, right? That's IR, right?
You're
It's
not returning.
not a
Yeah.
couple weeks and you're going to put some ice on it and some icy hot and you're returning to the game. So I don't know if the initial reports were a little misleading, but there's definitely something there because you're a week and a half, well, a week past the game, but what was it, the second quarter he went out in? So that
Well,
should have been an easy diagnosis.
and the other thing, the people, there's some people, that are saying they just haven't done it yet. Well, if that's the case, the Bears are dumb, because with Jalen Johnson being on the injury report, that's another player that the Bears can bring up from their practice squad or their depth to bring the game day. So it's showing, it honestly is giving me signs that this might not be season ending like we thought it was. Yeah, is he probably going to miss some time? 100%, but maybe it just got pulled again, and maybe we'll see him here sooner or later. Hopefully, it would be great, because the initial news was, terrible to hear. But as far as the defense goes, like I said, I think it's just all around. We can talk about what players we want to see better, but it's every player. Every players need to have a better game after last week. I'd probably say the only player that played a good game last week was Jaquan Brisker. Led us in tackles, wasn't ever the one getting burned in coverage. But we just need to see the defense as a whole. My two emphasis are obviously the cornerbacks, more so Tyreek, and then the D line. We need to see them get home and get that pressure like we saw in week one. So that way, Dennis Allen can be a little bit more conservative with those blitzes, where we don't have to see him as often and leave our guys out there on one-on-one matchups.
What's the
Um,
status on Grady Jarrett?
He's good. So the thing is, with the injury report, they've kind of talked about it now. He's kind of like that veteran where, like we saw a lot with Mercedes Lewis last year. The first day back, he's not going to practice. The next day, he's going to be limited, and then I think it was Friday, he was a full participant. It's kind of that veteran treatment you get. Once you're 10 plus years, it's kind of, you know rest. You get an extra rest day, then you come back, we work you up, and then it's a full thing, because these are veteran players who they know what they're going to be doing week in and week out, and they physically don't need to be on the practice field. Because the thing is that a lot of people don't understand too is, once these practices get in season, it is a lot of walkthroughs, film study, installation. There's still days where they're in pads, but it's not like training camp where they're full, hitting each other's heads. It's a lot of walkthroughs and non-contact stuff. So there's no risk of really putting Grady out there, especially at a D line position. He knows what you got to do. Hit the A gap. Okay, are we running? Are we running a stunt here? Okay, got that. Like it's not too complex. It's not like the O line, like with Joe Tooney, where Joe Tooney's got to know, hey, I'm run blocking this way, or we're pass blocking this way. Communication. It's a lot different on the defensive line, and it's just given him that extra rest that he needs to, take care of his body.
I would like to see from him a little bit more, though, considering all the motivational talking he did before the season started, especially once he got signed and there was a lot of mic and camera time from him. I would just like to see maybe that talk translate into game day play, and maybe that's the piece this week. Maybe he'll be a difference maker on that line and get a little bit more pressure on Dak, so we can limit that passing game downfield. But I think we're about to transition into my exciting topic of this week's game of the special teams because we have the kicker of kickers coming to town in Aubrey, and
Yeah.
we know we got a kicker problem. So the question is, rain, no rain. Does this put more pressure on Santos because of his kicking opportunities with an elite caliber kicker like Aubrey coming to town?
I mean, I was about to say kicking the ball in general is pretty hard, and then you add in rain, which messes up holding. Especially with at Soldier Field, where it is a grass field, it's hybrid, but it's still grass, and with the rain, the ball slips when you're trying to put it down. A lot of stuff can happen and mess up you know, there's a lot that goes behind it. It's not as simple as just kicking a football. There's a lot that goes into it before that ball gets kicked and how it's positioned. If it's positioned too far to the left, that's what hooks it to the right, and vice versa. Um, but that is another part of the game that could help the Bears, with Brandon Aubrey being able to kick 65-yard field goals, especially that one he hit to go to overtime. Probably looked like it was good from 70 yards, but with him, with the rain, it will help. You're not going to get as much distance because you've got to be a lot more precise kicking. And then, two, with the rain, you never know what could happen on those kicks. So,
Is
um,
this the game though where Santos misses like a
a
48
30-yard
yarder?
chip shot
Yeah, he misses it, and we say it's the rain, and then Aubrey comes out and
just drills
bombs
a
a
70
70
yarder.
yarder.
Yeah. It definitely could happen. And that's why, if the Bears do have this lead, I don't want it coming down to 3 points and Dallas has the ball in their hands, because it seems like from any distance, this guy's money. So definitely, special teams is definitely big. It will be a big factor, especially if, like we're talking, this game is a shootout and comes down to the wire. That kicking is going to matter, whether that's whether that's a long one from Cairo, or whether the Bears are up 3 trying to seal the game. And, you know, all Dallas needs to really do is get to the 50-yard line, and they're sending, Aubrey out there for another 65-yarder. Like, the guy's got serious range on him, and it could be a problem. But like we said, hopefully, I do agree. I kind of want the weather to stay away, just because
Mhm.
I want to see Caleb have a good game. And we know how that goes. The weather's, if it's raining and they lose, and then you see, because the rain, Caleb's only at 150 passing yards. Well, there we go. It's just going to be another week of Caleb hate. But they won't, they won't take into consideration the rain that was happening or anything. It'll just be, oh, it's all Caleb's fault. It's Caleb this, Caleb that.
Well, I mean, if Dak has 150 yards and Caleb has 150 yards, then you could say, okay, rain impacted the performance, right? But if Dak has
I
450
mean,
yards
yeah,
and
then
five
it's
touchdowns, then you're gonna be like, no, it's not
yeah,
the
well,
it wasn't
exactly.
the rain.
But I do like when football games too are just, that's why I do like the dome stadiums. It's the best playing conditions. There's no advantages, no disadvantages. Both teams have the same. I mean, obviously, too, when it's raining, both teams have the same conditions to play in, so it is fair. But at the same time, I'd rather just see the highest level of football it can be without weather playing implications into the game. Um, it's different when it's cold or something. That's just about being tough. But when it comes to rain and snow, it's like, come on, just save it for another day. Let's just let football, and we'll go we'll go to it later on. So, but why don't we transition into our final segment that we do every pregame show with our predictions? I'm gonna kick things off this week, and
Let's hear it. What do you got for me this week?
I'm gonna do a little, reverse juju on the Bears. I've
Little
picked them.
Uno reverse card.
Yeah, I've done them to I've picked them to win the past two games, which in my original predictions I did have them beating the Vikings but losing to the Lions, and I did in my prediction have them losing to the Lions. So I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna say the Bears are gonna lose a heartbreaker here, 27-24.
That sounds like a kicker problem.
No, it's gonna be a heartbreaker, and I'm just doing reverse magic. I do think the Bears are gonna win, but I'm predicting them to lose, so they win maybe. And if it goes like that, if they do win, I will continue the rest of our podcast picking them to lose. And if they keep winning, I think I figured out the recipe that we need to win. It's just like my sports bets every week. I feel like whatever I pick, it's the opposite. So I got to do it now with the Bears, and hopefully it transitions into a win.
Let's
And
hear
you know
it.
what?
What do you got?
I think I'm also gonna do something. I think I always have a vendetta when I bet too. No betting on the Bears. Well, it's fine. I'm gonna bet on the Cowboys this week. I don't care if I lose because either way, I'm gonna win and be happy. I either win money or the Bears win, and I'm mentally happy. So, no, but in all seriousness, I do have the Bears losing. But in reality, they're gonna win. But with Caleb, stat line like we do every week, it's going to be hard with that rain if it actually plays a factor. God, I'd love to see him have a 300-yard game. It just really depends. Is that how sure is that rain right now?
53% chance.
So it's a 50-50. Yeah, I'm going out on a limb. Caleb's having 300 plus yard game this week in the air. 3 touchdown passes this week too. But the completions, I think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna throw it as much. I just think we're gonna see a lot of explosive plays this week. With their secondary, kind of like we saw with our secondary last week, giving up those explosive. I'm talking 50-yard plays. I think we're gonna see a lot of them this week. I'm gonna say he's gonna be 23 for 29, 318 yards, 3 tutties. DeAndre Swift is also going to have a rushing touchdown. My defensive MVP, jeez, man, I gotta just have some faith in my man Tyreek that he's going to bounce back. I got Tyreek Stevenson as our defensive MVP. How about you?
That's a lot. That's a lot. I'm gonna go a little different. I'm gonna go 175 yards passing for Caleb.
You think the rain's going to definitely be an issue?
I think the rain's gonna be an issue, but I think our kick return is gonna provide us some better field position.
Okay. They do got
So we're not
Turpin
gonna.
for Dallas.
What's that?
So they got Turpin for Dallas, who
I,
did come back this week. He missed
I
last week, but
I hear you. But so for us, 175 yards. I am going 3 touchdowns as well. Um, Short game's going to be good, but I think we got Roshan Johnson back, so I'm taking him as my offensive player of the week. A lot of hard yards between the tackles, especially on that that sloppy field with that rain out there and the drizzle. Completion wise for Caleb, 18 out of 23. I'm going to go that. Pretty good completion percentage, especially on that short passing. Defensive wise, I'm going to go back to Deo Adangbo coming back again.
I like
I,
it. I can't
I,
complain about that one.
I think too, like you're gonna if it truly is the game we think it's going to be, he's going to put a lot of pressure. it's going to be another one of those good games for him. I think he bounces back from last week's game. Um, I have to pick him to win because otherwise my record prediction for the year is shot. So I'm going to have him win 21-14.
Wow.
Even though and this is why I'm taking it. 'Cause I'm taking your betting angle a little bit. The over under on this game has moved drastically since
What's
the
it at
line.
now? It opened up at like 50 something.
No, but initially when it opened, it was like 47. Now I think it's up to 50.5. So with that said, I think Vegas is trying to lull you to sleep on this game. I think the under is where it's at, and I think it's a low scoring
I mean,
game.
if the rain is definitely like it just depends. If it's a drizzle or if it's actual rain, that's the whole thing. And I
Yep.
mean, I'll advise you if you are a sports bettor like myself, do not
Oh,
touch this game. If that weather games are the ones where you just don't know what's going to happen. What was it? There was there was a game. It was a primetime game. It might have been week 1 or week 2, I forget, but they were calling for heavy rain and it never rained the whole game. So you never know what could happen. It's Mother Nature. You know, we could wake up tomorrow and it says it's a 20% chance, or we
yep.
wake up and it's 100% chance. You
But
never
it is
know.
Chicago. If you wait 5 minutes, if you don't like the weather, it'll change. So we'll
Yeah. So we will definitely see. I'm hoping it doesn't, but if it does, DeAndre Swift, you better be ready to go, for sure. Or like you said, one running back better be ready to go. Um, but I think that's a pretty good ending point on the show. Um, if you guys are new here, we do appreciate. Last video was our highest viewed video, and we appreciate all the support, all the comments, whether they're good, bad, in between. We love interacting with you guys. So feel free to like, comment, subscribe. We are 3 subscribers off of 50 subscribers, which is a good milestone for us, as this is our 10th episode. But we've been loving the feedback, whether that's on here or social media. It's been really cool to see. We're just doing this for fun. We love talking Bears. Um, and so, yeah, just make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with all your Bears friends out there, whether they're your friends, family, someone you know. Spread the word. We're here for you guys, and you can find all of our socials in the description below. We are on Facebook, TikTok, X, YouTube, obviously, Instagram. Just feel free to drop us a follow, stay along with the journey. I don't know
you
if
could
you
even
got.
sh-
Yeah,
you could
go
even
ahead.
share and say, look how crazy this guy is thinking they're gonna win 15 games this year. Because I am a Bears fan, right? I mean, I always think we're going to the Super Bowl, like everyone out there. Maybe not everyone out there, but you know, share it out there. It's a good laugh, if anything, and it's
Yeah,
free.
I was about to say, not everyone's right. I think all of us Bears think every year, we're going to go to the Super Bowl, and you should as a fan. I mean, that's the point of being a fan of a team. You root for your team, and you always hope for the best, and you fall short sometimes. Here recently, it's fallen short quite a bit, but hopefully, the tides are turning. But like you said in the beginning of the show, I think it's important to remind everyone: take a deep breath, enjoy it. Um, it is football season. It's the best time of the year. Get the, your Saturdays and Sundays are filled with, whether that's college football, NFL football. You get to relax before, going into the next work week. So just enjoy it while it's here. Obviously, though, we do want to see some wins pile up here soon, but just enjoy it. But that'll do it for this show. We'll catch you on the post game show after the game, hopefully with a positive show finally on the year and a post game. But for now, bear
Bear
down.
down.